Hello YouTube. This will be a relatively short follow-up to my recent video entitled Sargon the Liberalist. I don't have any intention of making this channel about Sargon or about liberalists, and in fact this will hopefully be the last video I make on either topic. But in the course of talking about that last video with some people, I realized that there was an important point I neglected to make that I sort of just took for granted. See, in that video, I showed that the liberalist movement is so wrapped up in Sargon that it may as well be called the Sargon movement. And even if he has since tried to distance himself from comments he made about being the leader, he is still by far the most well-known and recognizable name in the movement. And if it's going to have a public face, he's essentially the only real option at this point. I pointed out several issues with that in my previous video, but I didn't mention the main issue. See, Sargon is irreparably tainted in such a way that he could never gain mainstream acceptance as an activist. And how do I know this? Well, let's take a look at a video clip from October. This clip was filmed at MythCon, and the person on the stage with Sargon is someone called Thomas Smith.
So in my opinion, you have no understanding of why people want to censor you, because it's not about ideology, it's not about ideas. I could argue your ideas all day. We could talk about identity politics, it's not that hard. I think if we want to clue into why people don't want you here, let's read your quotes.
Go.
So you told female MP Jess Phillips, everyone should know this by now, but I just want to make absolutely sure.
Everyone should know. It's in the newspapers, so you probably do know.
Someone who was herself a victim of sexual assault. All because she wanted to start a campaign to rid online bullying, to fight online bullying.
When you say, it's a campaign against online bullying, that sounds really neutral. But what it is unjustifiable control over social media.
Let me finish the quote, and then you can, I will, by all means, give you a chance to have your say. So this is someone who's a woman, a sexual assault survivor, someone we all know, like she was public about that. It's in the news, and it's in response to a campaign to try to fight online harassment. And you saw fit to tweet at her, to say to her, "I wouldn't even rape you."
And do you understand why your moral outrage about that is something I just don't care about?
Because you're awful. Yeah, I do.
Now that's it.
You're awful.
Exactly.
That is an unacceptable thing to say to somebody. To tell a rape victim, a sexual assault victim, "I wouldn't even rape you," is disgusting.
Why?
That's behavior that should be beyond the pale.
Why?
And everybody cheering, everybody who is a part of inviting you, you have signaled to the women in the movement, you do not give a shit about using rape as a threat to bully somebody. That's what you have signaled.
It's not a threat. It's the antithesis of a threat. That's the point. And the whole point of it was to demonstrate that I would say, I won't do something, and you will say, that's a threat.
Oh, it's just a coincidence that you said rape.
No, it's a deliberately...
It's a coincidence that you didn't say, I won't murder her, I won't... why don't you name all the crimes?
Do any of these
Go
things.
through all the crimes. Arson, I won't... It's a coincidence.
No, it's entirely deliberate, but the thing is,
because she's a victim of sexual assault.
You don't know anything about the context.
You know that you can use her previous trauma as a cudgel to bully her.
It's nothing to do with her trauma, and you know it, and she knows it, right? She was parading around saying, look, I think I get all these rape threats, and therefore I want to control the internet. And she's an MP, so it's not like she's powerless, right? And I said, right, look, the point I was making is, regardless of what she says, she's going to do it anyway. So if she gets something that isn't a rape threat, they're just going to claim it is anyway, because that's the point. It's all an ideological mission, and I object to it.
This is the fundamental disconnect we have.
Damn right.
This is the reason why you have two extremely polarized groups of people. A group of people who are cheering, saying, "I wouldn't even rape you," to a victim of sexual assault. You have those people, deplorables, and then you have people who understand. You have people who are sensitive to the idea that maybe we shouldn't tell people I wouldn't even rape you. Maybe we shouldn't threaten people online in that way and bully them in that way.
It's not a threat, but should we let the preacher carry on? Sorry, tell us what we should and shouldn't do.
Let's go to your next quote. So another one is...
Let's skip the quotes, right? Because I'm literally just going to answer every single one of these.
From the video...
I don't care about your opinion on this, Thomas.
From the video,
I don't care.
Called Feminism is a Mental Illness.
Yep. It's Sargon's now infamous quote, "I wouldn't even rape you." Other people have probably talked about this when it happened, but this is the first time I've done this in a video. Now, for many people who watch this clip, this might be totally unambiguous. Maybe you thought about this at the time and you made your decision about this comment a long time ago. Now, for many of you, you might agree with Thomas Smith that it was a rape threat delivered to a sexual assault victim. By the way, notice how he slipped up and called her a rape victim? Just more evidence that those two words have been essentially blended into one meaning now. So, you may agree with Smith that it's a threat. Or maybe you agree with Sargon that it's the antithesis of a threat. Beyond that, maybe you think it is a threat, but she deserved it. I mean, I'll be the first person to tell you that Jess Phillips is not a good person, but I certainly don't agree that she deserves threats. Rather, I think she shouldn't ever have any power over another human being. But I think if you agree with either Thomas Smith or Sargon, you're missing something important. And it's this thing that I think will kill Sargon's activist career before it can ever really get started. See, he's right, it's not a threat. But it's also not the antithesis of a threat, and it's certainly not something that society as a whole thinks is okay to say to someone, and especially not okay to say to someone who has experienced sexual assault. Notice in the clip how Sargon describes what he said. "I wouldn't rape you." But that's not what he actually wrote. There's a key word missing there. Even. See, even is not a meaningless word in this context. But what does even mean? Well, in this case, it's an intensifier. Now, fans of Sargon might recognize this, but think that it's a neutral intensifier, giving the sentence the meaning of, "I definitely wouldn't rape you." But that's not how intensifiers work. And that's not what even does. Intensifiers always have some added meaning to it. There's some reason why it intensifies the thing. And in the case of even, it's an intensifier that shows that the thing in question is shocking, unusual, or strange. So just to give you an idea of what this means, if you're not clear on this, here's a few examples of even in a sentence that I took from yourdictionary.com. When she glanced up at him, even his smile was reassuring. And this means that in the normal course of events, his smile would not have been reassuring, but for whatever reason, in this case, it was. Not even a year had passed since the stabbing, but he had been doing well. This means that you would not normally expect him to be doing well so soon. He wasn't even being recognized for his abilities. This means that you would normally expect him to be recognized for his abilities, but for some reason he wasn't. Now let's look at Sargon's statement. I wouldn't even rape you. What this means is that in the normal course of events, I would rape you. But for one reason or another, I won't. Or maybe it's shocking or surprising that I wouldn't rape you. Do you see now why this is a horrible thing to say to someone? By saying this, Sargon is portraying himself as a rapist who doesn't think Jess Phillips is worthy of rape. So Sargon is right. It's not a rape threat. But for most people, it's still not an acceptable thing to say to someone. It's not like it's either a threat or it's perfectly okay. It can be not a threat and still be a horrible thing to say to someone. And not only did Sargon say this to a public figure, but he doubled down on it later, and as far as I'm aware, he still stands behind it. So if the liberalist movement ever gains any mainstream attention, and Sargon is still the figurehead, this is the first clip that's going to be aired. And I think the prevailing view will be either he made a rape threat, or he proclaimed himself to be someone for whom rape is normal or expected. Either way, any movement attached to him is instantly going to be tainted by this idea of being okay with, if not rape itself, then rape threats. And any serious points this movement makes are likely to be ignored. I mean, think about the men's rights movement and how Paul Elam's satirical Bash a Violent Bitch Month article is used to smear all MRAs, and how opponents of that movement consistently lie and misrepresent it, and this is often based on complete fabrications. Well, opponents of liberalists don't even need to resort to such underhanded tactics. To publicly smear the movement, all they need to do is endlessly replay this clip. And if you're not convinced, think of the mainstream normies you know, if you know anyone. And how do you think they would react to the liberalist movement after hearing that one of their prominent members once said this phrase? Personally, I think most of the people I know wouldn't want anything to do with it. So beyond anything else about the movement, this is why any activist group centered around Sargon is likely always going to be a fringe group without any mainstream influence or acceptance. And any group that can't break into the mainstream isn't likely to achieve any important societal change. And yeah, before anyone calls me on it, this may not seem like an overly positive video or one focused on improving things. But I think it's important for anyone thinking about joining the liberalists to know that as long as Sargon is the figurehead, it's probably not going anywhere. And preventing people from wasting their time, their money, and their passion on something doomed to failure is certainly not a negative thing in my book. So by all means, become an activist. Try to save the world. Try to improve things in the world. Try to fight against injustice and unfairness and fight for your ideals. That's great. But if you're going to do it, you have to do it in a smart way. Because otherwise you're just wasting your time, and you're wasting the time of anyone who follows you. That's my point here. I'm not arguing against activism. I'm not arguing against organizing. I'm not arguing against trying to fix things in the world. I'm arguing against doing it in a bad way. I'm arguing against doing it in a way that is doomed to failure. So to all the liberalists out there, I think you need to really sit down and think about whether or not you want to follow a movement that has Sargon of Akkad as, if not the leader, then the most prominent member. Because I don't want you wasting your time. I don't want you wasting your energy. And that's the reason I'm making this video. I'm not on a vendetta against Sargon. I'm not trying to take him down or anything like that. I just don't want anyone wasting their time. I think there are much more positive ways you could spend your energy. I think there are much better ways you could focus on improving things. And that is what it's all about. So until next time, I'm Positive Improvement, and I wish you all the best.